الكريم سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. As the brother stated earlier, all of us will be participating in the question and answer session. But since you know me inside out,
or do they?
There's nothing much you can ask, or they can ask that you don't know, because we've been here together for years. The questions will be addressed to the Shaykh mainly, and it's a fair game. When I ask the Shaykh a question, or Shaykh Kamal another question, when he finishes answer, then he can ask a question, or any of one of the Shaykh, they can pick up the mic and just ask a question after he finished answers. Now, since I started the talk, and since I'm in the middle, and inshallah, and since this is the Masjid Abu Hurairah, I would ask the first question to Sheikh Abdur Raheem McCarthy. A question that is general question. Also, it is in the minds of a lot of students, and that is, we assume that when we go seeking ilm, we go overseas and we sit with the shuyukh, Salih al-Fawzan, the ulama, that alhamdulillah, the one that are alive and the one who passed away. And then, mashallah, you come back as students of knowledge, as students of Sheikh so and so. And they don't realize what student of knowledge would go through to become a student of knowledge, or even to sit with the ulama, such as the ulama that I mentioned, and the likes of Sheikh al-Albani, Bin Baz, Ibn Uthaymeen. So my question to him is, tell us a little bit about your journey, the journey of seeking ilm, and was it as easy and colorful as a lot of people assume?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Like you said, a lot of people, they imagine that when they go, they sit and they just kind of suck in the ilm, they just sit in the halaqat, and the ilm just kind of comes to them. But the reality is it's a very difficult journey, especially if you want to really benefit. And we find the majority of the brothers who come from the West, only a few really come back as real students of knowledge. And if we were to look, for example, at the Arabic language, even though they've studied Arabic language for 2 years and they've studied in the college for 4 or 5 years, we'll find that they don't speak proper Arabic. They don't read proper Arabic, because they didn't put the time into the office that you need. Because it's not something you just, like you take some tests, even though you might pass and you come home with a degree, but then what's significant is and it's how you really benefit it. So I'll tell you for what happened to me. The first place I chose to go to was Sudan. As I mentioned, for no particular reason, it was just something that happened. I went to Sudan, and after like the first month or two, I got malaria. And I don't know if anybody here has ever had malaria, but you can imagine the worst flu in Canada, and it's like you're in Jannah, yakhi. This flu is just awesome, compared to the malaria. I mean, it's unexplainable, man. Oh, it's just incredible. For 6 days I couldn't eat anything. I mean, I would eat anything I would eat, I'd throw up like, gallons. And where's it coming from? I don't know, because I haven't eaten anything. 3.5 days, any liquids as well. I couldn't, it was so hot, and there's no AC. I was like in an oven. I had some beautiful brothers from Nigeria with me. They took care of me, and they used to help me make wudu. They, make wudu for me. It was terrible, I rested for a week. You're supposed to, 7 days malaria, 7 days rest, and you're back on your feet. After the 14 days, I got malaria again. This time was a little different. I'll be okay, and then all of a sudden it'd be like Mike Tyson punched me in the face. I'll be out, Yeah, it was a weird one. So this first month, and then I really thought about coming back. I said, okay, let's just go back, get a little more money, work, and then come back out again. It's a little too much. But I saw all the brothers who came back, never came back out. So I didn't want to be from them. I said, I have to be patient. So this was very difficult, and I was patient then. And then when you go to, as Yahya ibn Abi Kathir mentioned, لا ينال العلم براحة الجسد, that you cannot receive the ilm, the knowledge, and have your body be relaxed at the same time as you kick back. It's a very difficult procedure. And if you look, for example, what we used to do, we used to focus on, if somebody really wants ilm, it's not in the college. The ilm is with the ulama, the scholars outside. So alhamdulillah, I recall that during my last 2 years, I found the best way for ilm, the best way to get knowledge, is not in the major, the big halaqat. Even though I did attend some of them, like the dars of Shaykh al-Shinqiti, and I sat with Shaykh Abdur Muhsin al-Abbad and several of his classes before. We studied the smaller books with him, like Arba'in Nawawiyya and small books in Aqidah. And also, we studied with him as well, some of the books of Sunan Abi Dawud, some of the chapters anyways. But he was, I had other focuses, so I wasn't able to sit with him as much as I wanted to. But anyways, this we would start in the morning, have a dars after Fajr, most of the time. We had a dars, we had the 25 hours a week, from like 7:30 to 1 every day in the university. Sometimes after Dhuhr, after Asr, we had a dars as well, after Maghrib, after Isha. So we had 25 in the university and 25 outside of the university. And for somebody to be successful, it's not just attending, because when you attend, it doesn't really benefit you. What you have to do, as Ibn Midran mentioned, if you really want to gain knowledge, you have to first of all read the chapter you're going to read to the Shaykh, and then study it, from the shuruh, the explanations of the book. If you have a book in fiqh, you read the book that explains this, and then you go to the Shaykh. Anything he adds on extra, you write it down. Anything you don't understand, you ask him about, and then you review it when you go back. So you have to put a lot of time in the office to really get there, and it's not easy. It's not easy at all. So people think it's easy, but it's not. It takes a lot. And sometimes you find yourself up, especially when you get into the research. Because somebody who really knows about seeking knowledge, when you start to research in a mas'ala, there's nothing more beautiful than that. Nothing in the dunya. So when you get into a mas'ala, you find yourself in it. It's like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And you have to get to that mas'ala. You have to get it. So you're in the library and you're researching, and then you finally find it, and then you find yourself falling asleep, and then the adhan's in 2 hours, and then you have to get up and go again. And that's just how it is. So it's not an easy thing. If you want to be successful, you have to memorize a lot, and you have to review all the time. And alhamdulillah, it's a constant thing. So it's not as easy as people think it is. And then also from the important things is the issue of ibadah. You have to make sure you have your ibadah, because the knowledge and ibadah, they go together, and they help you out with that. It's a strenuous, it's a very difficult job, but in the sweetness you find at the end of it, there's none like it. Wallahi, akhi. I've tried so many things from the dunya. Wallahi, there's nothing like the ilm at the end of the day. And that's why even in Shafi'i, he said, to hear for him to hear the noise of his pen on the paper, it's more beautiful for him than the person who loves to sit with the singer when she beats on her drums and what have you from the fusaq. He says he finds that more beautiful. And that's how it is in Sunnah knowledge. And this is the most beautiful thing that a person will find, finding the knowledge and learning more about Allah, learning more about the Sunnah of our beloved Prophet ﷺ. And there's nothing like it. But it needs as one of our Shaykh told us, the Qura Rijal. Or we could say Inath and Nisa, can that come? And the men of men. And it needs, you have to be really serious and really sincere at the end of the day. And then maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant you something of the knowledge. And the more you learn how jahil you are. And that's why now, a lot of brothers, they read a book or two in English, and they want to challenge the Mashiach. I read this, I heard this. Or here's a tape, and here's Kamal says something. They say, no, I heard that Sheikh Saeed said this. Yeah, Kamal. He wants to challenge him. And then you realize, when you learn more, you realize how ignorant you really are. When you see the scholars, how these big books, they wrote 30 volumes, 40 volumes, and you see how much of a maskeen you really are, and you don't have anything. And this helps you with tawadhu at the end, and you find the love of your mashaykh and how you can take the knowledge from them and then pass it on to the others.
Most of you don't know that Akhuna Kamal el-Mekki, Jazakallah khair, he's a poet. Now, we want to hear some of his poems. So can you please...
I'm his good friend, I didn't know it either. So.
Share something with the brothers, with the congregation.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. I've only written 7 poems. 2 are on religion and 5 are on chicken and kebab and things like that. I want to ask you which category you want me to go to. I think it's quite clear, yeah?
I have both, the best of the both worlds,
And I've only memorized the chicken ones, yeah.
No, by the way, there actually is in Arabic, there's also a qasida about the judge. Some of our scholars in Mauritania, they wrote qasida, they wrote a poem about Shai al-Akhdar green tea. So alhamdulillah, you're on the manhaj, man. You're going.
Thank you very much.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you for authenticating what I'm doing.
Yeah. So alhamdulillah, he's on it, man.
I'll give you a quick short one first, and then I'll give you the, So basically, this is something I wrote for a friend of mine, and some of you may have heard some of this stuff before. A friend of mine, my eating partner, it was inspired by him. Yeah. So I told him, I see you coming in your girth. Eat and drink is what you're worth. Your only talk is what to eat. This type of chicken, that type of meat. This type of food, that type of dessert. You eat until your stomach hurts. Follow the sunnah, I'm sure you've heard. Fill with food to about the third. But you eat the whole bird, the whole chicken. Your only sunnah is finger licking.
That's good, inshallah.
The other one was this friend of mine, also my eating partner. And this guy was great, and he knew every restaurant. If I would get lost somewhere in Virginia, I would call him up. Yeah, I'm lost, I'm hungry. He's like, if you make a right, there's a restaurant like that. One other thing you'd need to know for the poem, we used to go to this place that made lamb chops, fantastic lamb chops. It was called Chopin in that place. So what happened was we got married, both of us, around the same time. And obviously after we got married, we stopped hanging out, we stopped eating together, and it was a very very sad experience, I've heard. So I wrote him a poem. I said, sadness fills my heart and fills the sky. Marriage forces us to say goodbye. The sun has risen, but it hasn't shone. You know I don't like to eat alone. Whenever I was hungry or was in the mood, calling you was like dialing 1-800-food. You had extensive knowledge of every branch and location, even pricing, menus, and hours of operation. Now we don't eat and we don't mingle. I wonder if you still eat like when you were single. So give me a call sometime if you can, to eat some kebab or maybe Chopin. Or for a light snack at the all-you-can-eat, let's make them suffer another defeat.
That's good, man. That's
Now, the other question I have for Sheikh Abu Abdur Rahman is to share with us, when I came here, we were all faced with a culture shock. I remember the first thing a man said to me, I'm gay. I just want him to kill me at that moment. I felt, just please shoot me and don't tell me you're gay. I believe something similar to that could happen to you when you go to the East. Can you share some of the, funny incident that you experienced?
It's probably the same word you used, because what happened when I went to Sudan for the first time, the first day I arrived, I asked where was the masjid, and they told me it was a rather long walk. So the guy who was taking me to the masjid, he took my hand and held my hand, like it is their custom in Sudan, huh? Oh man, that was, for me, I was like, oh God, what is this guy doing, I couldn't, another man is holding my hand. It was just disgusting. And he's really, and he going with me and he's all happy. I'm like, oh my God, I just want to like crawl under a rock and die, I just felt so, because where I'm coming from, that's just something you don't do. And it's their custom, so he thinks it's from, being a nice guy and being a brother in Islam, he's holding your hand. And I just, that was too much for me. And I'll tell you a funny story that happened, one of our mashaykh in Sudan, Sheikh Abdul Hayyusib, he said he went to London for a conference, and Sheikh Ja'far Sheikh Idris, he was there. So he did like they do in Sudan, he grabbed his hand, he's the older man, Sheikh Ja'far, the Sheikh comes and walks with him, holds his hand. So Sheikh Ja'far immediately pulled his hand back. He said, don't do it in London. So I remember that was a thing. Another thing our brother told me, he said, when you go to Sudan, he said, you're going to find 3 crazy things. This was the 4th one I found. That was actually crazier than the 3. But he said, you're going to find, first of all, that women will try to shake your hands. And that's weird for us. When we become Muslims, it's haram to shake women's hands. And then you have these Muslim women, kayf al-hal, how you doing? And it's like, wow, So the second thing he says, you're going to find really big houses, mansions, that you won't see even in America. On the other side of the street, you'll find mud houses. And we found that. He said the third thing, when we go to a public place, he said they all drink from one glass. Everybody comes and drinks from the same glass. As for us, it's very strange, and obviously here, but obviously we got used to it now. And even holding hands now, if somebody comes in, I wouldn't want him to do it in Canada, obviously, but in Sudan now, if somebody holds my hand, it's not a big deal.
بالنسبة Sheikh Kamal al-Mekki, you lived, alhamdulillah, you lived in Virginia, in Maryland, especially in Virginia. And of course we have Sheikh Ja'far Idris, Salah al-Sawi, Abdul Aziz al-Fawzan, Yusuf al-Shubayli, Rashid al-Adwani, Ahmed al-Khudair, Sa'ab al-Sa'ab, Fahad al-Hamoudi, Fahad al-Faiz, long list of scholars who did you benefit most from?
There are two people that I benefited the most from. The people that I benefited the most from in Virginia, يعني صحيح we had like classes with Sheikh al-Fawzan, Aqidah classes in his home and things like that. They were very beneficial, but I wasn't around them enough to say that I benefited from them the most, even though they probably were of the most knowledgeable people that I was around. But the two people that I benefited the most from, the first was Sheikh Ja'far Idris, no doubt. And Sheikh Ja'far Idris, really, he's a very, very humble man, and because he's humble in the way he dresses and the way he behaves, people, unfortunately, in the West, they think that he may not be that knowledgeable because he's humble. We're used to someone who has something, they're kind of like this, and their nose is up, and mashallah, he knows his stuff. Someone's very, very humble, like he probably doesn't know that much. But it was the opposite with Sheikh Ja'far, and there are certain things that got us to realize the status of the Sheikh. One of them is one of our friends went to Hajj, and in his group was Sheikh Ja'far Idris. He said, I met major scholars in Mecca that we hear their tapes and read their books. He said these major scholars would drop what they're doing. When they found out that Sheikh Ja'far is in my group, they would stop what they're doing, stop their class, leave their halaqat, and come all the way and kiss his forehead, and then go back to what they were doing. That was one thing. The other thing is that these mashayikh that you're mentioning, at the Ma'had, they're big names, and now they're very popular, especially now in the Muslim lands. They're all over the satellite stations. And Sheikh Ja'far Idris used to have a class, and he's an expert. He's a brilliant, صراحة, brilliant mind. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. First of all, he has his PhD in philosophy, and when he was writing, you're supposed to write a book, right, for your PhD. He wrote a 60-page introduction to his book. And nothing else, and he just showed the introduction to his professor. The introduction was so superb, his professor gave him the PhD right then and there. So he's an expert in philosophy, and as some scholars say about him, he's one of the last living scholars who are philosophers and upon the right manhaj. So he is an expert in Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah and the writings of Ibn Taymiyyah. And anyone who tries to read the works of Ibn Taymiyyah, when he gets deep, you're just like, what language is this again? What religion is this? You can't understand it, So the Sheikh, the mashayikh, the big mashayikh that the Sheikh Saeed was just mentioning, they would come, they had a closed session in his home. So he would sit on the chair, and these big mashayikh would sit on the floor, and he would explain to them from the books of Ibn Taymiyyah. And so one of my friends, he was telling me that he went to, he told the Sheikh, I want to attend, This brother knows Arabic very well. He studied in Arabic his whole life, and so he says, the Sheikh said, yeah, you want to come, fine, but you can't ask any questions. So I said, I sat, all the mashayikh sat, and Sheikh Ja'far started to explain. He said, I don't know what religion they were talking about. I didn't understand anything they were saying. 5% of what they were saying he couldn't understand. It was that depth and that of knowledge. So Sheikh Ja'far Idris, a very humble man, but extremely knowledgeable, and when it comes to his issues of aqidah and tafsir, and I believe one of the things that makes the Sheikh unique, because like sometimes you have a tafsir class with him, and he will tell you things that you may not find in any book, little insights and mulahadat, observations. Phenomenal. One of the things that he does, he always contemplates the Qur'an. I remember one time I was at his house, and we were about to pray, and so they went to call one of his sons. Basically, he went to yell, one of his sons went to call his other brother, and he was just going to tell him as-salah and come back. So it's a 20-second journey. 20 seconds to get to the stairs and say as-salah and come back. In these 20 seconds, the Shaykh opened the Mus'haf, he started looking. He always contemplates the Qur'an. And I heard one time that a group of students came to Shaykh bin Baz. They said that after we memorize the Qur'an, memorize the books of hadith, what should we do? He told them, contemplate the Qur'an. Then they said, and after that, what should we do? The Shaykh just smiled. You don't finish, you don't complete, you're never done contemplating the Qur'an. That's as far as Shaykh Ja'far Idris is concerned, and I must say the other person that I benefited a whole lot from was Dr. and Shaykh Ali al-Tamimi. So Allah Shaykh Ja'far, Shaykh Ali Tamimi right now is in prison, We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to grant him his freedom.
Ameen.
Ameen. Jazakumullah khair. Sheikh, I must say this, يعني, and I'm not saying I'm anything يعني, in the field of knowledge, but I've never sat with anybody, big scholar or not big scholar, except that I found an angle that I am more or better versed than them in it. Yani you sit with someone who's a monster in aqidah, but in history you're better than them. You sit with someone who's phenomenal in fiqh, but you know interfaith better than them, or whatever it is. Yani, you never sit with anyone in life except that you can surpass them in something. Even major scholars, you can surpass them in some angle or another. But I've never in my life sat with someone that I could never find myself better than them in anything besides Ali Tamimi. And the man, and a lot of you are young, and you only know the new young du'at now. You're not aware of, you don't know as much, the folks who especially started the da'wah and from the early people in da'wah in the United States. Sheikh Ali Tamimi is really, really a phenomenal person. And as far as the amount of knowledge, one time I was helping him clean up his library, and he was showing me books, and he was showing me da'wah ideas that he had, and he was like, yeah, I was 17 years old when I had this idea. This is an age where others were just playing video games or doing other things, and he was thinking like a very mature person. He would spend his entire day, just in the morning he would go Library of Congress, and he wouldn't come out until night. He'd just pray there and everything like that. Very knowledgeable, very he could push himself to study. And so you ask him about anything, you find that he knows something about it. Even things of the dunya. One time I saw a brother who drove all the way from New York City just to consult with Sheikh Ali Tamimi about what should I do with my career. And the Sheikh would talk like some counselor at the school, or even better. One time I've seen him give advice to people, and people were studying that field for years, and he told them things that they had no clue about. They would have to go research some more. So he's really phenomenal in that aspect, and I can't say what a shame it is that someone like this in the ummah would be put behind bars. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to grant him his freedom. So he's also, like I said, with issues of dunya, he is also a geneticist. At some point he was one of the top 25 in the world, and he was also doing a study in cancer research. He was trying to try to use mathematical chaos theory to explain the random multiplication of cells in the human body, the cancerous cells. So let's say just some hardcore stuff. But beyond that, he also has a lot of izzah. He's not one of those people that suck up or lower their heads to the kuffar. Wherever he works, they call him. Actually, one place where he works, they call him Superman. He's beyond what I'm telling you, mashallah, tabarakallah. He's beyond what you think an average person is capable of. And one time we were putting together an Islamic center, and this lawyer came to us with pages this thick. That lawyer talk, that lawyer jargon, the way they wrote things. So all of us were on the first paragraph. And when we looked, he was already asking the lawyer things from the 6th page. His ability to process information is I've never ever in my life met someone, and I've been impressed by a lot of people. I think you all know I'm very impressed by Sheikh Walid Basyouni. Don't get me started with that. I'm impressed by a lot of people, but I've never ever been impressed by anybody in my life as much as I've become impressed by Sheikh Ali Tamimi. So his trial is on hold, and it's supposed to come up soon. Not to make this a sad thing, but I would ask all the believers to make dua for the Sheikh, because his trial could go very nicely if we just put a lot of dua in. Jazakumullah khairan.
I think I can say a little bit more about Sheikh Ja'far Idris, hafidhahullah. Sheikh Ja'far Idris, subhanallah, I remember sitting with one of the shuyukh, and he was very frustrated, very, very upset. And so I said, what is wrong, Sheikh? And he said, I cannot convince this man to write more books. Because he said, if he dies tomorrow, khalas, whatever he has, it will die with him. And I could not convince him to write more books and leave it for the ummah. Nobody writes like him. Nobody has the ilm that he has. But the man is so simple, subhanAllah, and he's absolutely right. He's very down to earth. And remember when we used to attend his halaqah, people would speak and talk and explain, and he would be like, very interesting, that's good. And he would show the students who were sitting there that, wow, I impressed the Sheikh. And I know for a fact the Sheikh knew the information before that young man was born. But but he was like, wow, alhamdulillah. Now, my other question is to Sheikh Abdur Raheem, and it is, see, you became a Muslim, alhamdulillah, and you learned about Islam. What is your understanding while you were reading before Islam and after Islam, basically, while you were reading about Islam, and when you met the actual Muslims? Was there a shock, or you found exactly what you read about Islam and Muslims?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And it's real quick, I was just with Sheikh Jafar recently in Sudan, and every time he comes to Sudan I get the pleasure of sitting with him. Alhamdulillah, I'm good friends with his sons as well. So it's funny when you sit with him and he sees the tawaddu he has, and you almost forget you're sitting with a major scholar. You have to be careful. Don't sit back and chill too much, because he'll come in and just like chill with you in his garden, drinking tea, and you feel like, so you actually forget sometimes. He's so mutawaddi, and he just brings him down like he's just like one of your brother. He doesn't make you feel like I'm your sheikh. You have to, So subhanallah, he's a beautiful man, Sheikh Jafar. I was just with him recently. Alhamdulillah, he's doing good. He's in good health. Alhamdulillah, he's in Sudan. And you'll see him soon in India, inshallah. When I first became Muslim, I guess, I can't really say much about it. I stayed for 6 months in America after I became Muslim. I can't really say much about the Muslims there. But what I thought was then when I left America for Talab al-Ilm, I was going to Sudan, that I was going to find the Sahaba. That's what I thought anyways. So when I got off the plane, I didn't find them, obviously. And I think on the 4th or 5th day, there was a brother who's actually from Somalia. He took me to the duty-free shop to get some milk and sugar and other things. It was cheaper there. So when I came back from the hot Sudanese sun, I went to this little restaurant. I went to buy a Coke, So I went in my pocket. I was like, no wallet. All my money, my birth certificate, driver's license, everything is gone, I was like, wow, that's an introduction to the Muslim country. And it never happened to me. I walked through the streets of D.C., the worst neighborhoods in D.C., and I'm dressed like this, and nobody would even think about robbing me. And then I go into a Muslim country, and I get robbed before the first week is up, and I'm left with nothing. Alhamdulillah, my passport wasn't with me. That's the only thing I had to prove who I was, Then after this, you'll find several things. I went to study in the university, and the guy in charge, he was like, I'm sorry, we can't let you study here. I was coming to learn Arabic, coming to learn Deen. And I said, why not? He said, you have to pay $1,500. And I just got robbed. I didn't have any money, So I went to cry. Wallahi, tears just filled my eyes. And I couldn't believe that I was in a Muslim country and they told me I had to pay for knowledge, So this really hurt me, So obviously you found the Muslims or something. And as you were mentioning the other day, any Islamic time, not Muslim time. Unfortunately, the Muslims sometimes are in a valley and Islam is in another. But any person, we study Islam for what it is, and we know Islam for what it is. And the Muslims, when they have shortcomings, we still have a lot of good, alhamdulillah. And this is what we know. Even like in Sudan, unfortunately, the situation, it's not going like it is, like we wanted to, the hijab and other things. It's really going in a bad direction. But at least in the Muslim society, we still have something called aib. Something it's a shame if you do it, And you come to Western societies, you don't have that. So the Muslims, alhamdulillah, with the backwardness that they have, and everything is, as the brother said, when you go to the Muslim country, it's run by IBM. And I thought about the computer company, IBM. He said, no, inshallah, bukra, meaning tomorrow, in ma'alish, sorry. And he said, this is the Muslim way of life, Because when you go to them, they said, ya akhi, can you do this? And you go to them, he said, inshallah. Then when you come back, he says, bukra. You come back tomorrow and I'll give it to you. When you come back bukra, it's still not ready. He says, ma'alish. I'm sorry, it's not ready. So, alhamdulillah, as a lot of people say, we learned Islam before we saw the Muslims, Even with that, we still have a lot of good in our ummah, alhamdulillah. And you see the shabab coming out now. This is evidence of this khair and this good. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen.
Another question that I have for Akhuna Kamal el-Mekki is a point that Abdur Raheem mentioned, and this is the respect that the young people nowadays have for scholars or for da'is, like shuyukh like Salah Hassawi, Jafar Idris, and they are so ignorant that they think they can refute them, they can correct them, they can talk to them. And subhanAllah, I remember when we were at the Ma'had and Yusuf al-Qaradawi came, though we disagree with him on a lot of things that he does. So we went to him, and we didn't go to him actually. Fahad al-Faiz and Abdul Aziz al-Fawzan, we were there, and a small group of students, and we were so hurt that the man even is in town, not letting alone that, and we were so eager to go and just tell him who he is, and he should stay, and we thought the shuyukh, Abdul Aziz al-Fawzan and Fahad al-Faiz, they would say, MashaAllah, you're on the haqq, you're on the sunnah, and tell him this too, and tell him that too. But instead of getting that from them, they just destroyed us on the spot. And say, who are you? Who are you to address Shaykh Yusuf al-Qaradawi? And I was like, you call him a sheikh? He said, who are you? And then they just killed us there. And they said, we don't even talk to him like that. And subhanAllah, Hussein al-Shwat, you remember from, I came to him, to his office one day, and I said, well, and the sheikh was busy fixing his papers, and he's in his office, and he was moving, and he was busy. And I said, well, Ja'far Idris said this, and the man, his back was turned to me, and he was working, and he just froze, just stopped. And he had files on his hand, and he just dropped them on the table, on the desk. And he turned to me, and he frowned and said, what did you say? I said, well, Ja'far Idris said this. He said, who do you think he is? Wahid min ashabak? And we, one of your friends that you talk, you address him like Ja'far Idris, just half? I mean, he was so harsh on me. I felt the tears coming out of my eyes, like, man, what did I do to this? And I just said, Assalamu alaikum, and walked away. But nowadays, it's not like that. You see these young people, mashallah, they have answer for everything, a statement for every statement of the ulama. What would the advice be for these young people coming out?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. What Shaykh Saeed just described, what the mashayikh did to him, that's called tarbiyah. And this is something that's missing now. And this is what you really can't get, even if you listen to all the tapes and the CDs in the world, and you take fantastic notes and you memorize every word that came out of the sheikh's mouth, you heard the lecture online, it's not tarbiyah, And this is something that's missing these days. And a lot of shabab, they don't have a lot of respect now. And they can't even, for example, with Shaykh al-Qaradawi, so suppose you disagree with him, or your mashayikh at least disagree with him on many issues. Does that wipe out all the other good that he's done for so many years that he's been doing? Does that even wipe out the idea that he is older than us in age? There's a masjid in our area, and there's someone older than us, and he's got white hair on his head and white beard. But he does say some things that do make your blood boil. But in the end, he's older than your father. These young men, they would go to him, they told him, "Hish! How could you do that? What kind of adab is that?" And I was telling, they were thinking, we're on the haqq, showing off over to you, we're on the haqq. I told him, "Hish! Tumshi! Go!" I told him, something, I always imagine, when you guys are talking like this, I told him, I imagine if my father came to the masjid, and one of you punks did that to him. And what do you think this is? Allah, would you accept if your father came to the masjid and I said that to your father? Hush! This is somebody's father. He's old. He's got white hairs on his head and his beard. And couldn't you disagree with properly? Can you at least look at the fact that he leads us in salah, hafiz of the Quran, and all these things? You don't put any of that into consideration. It's interesting how when the people of fitna surrounded Uthman radiallahu anhu in his home, and he knows they're going to kill him because the Prophet ﷺ told him that. He knows they're going to kill him. The companions came, they said, these people are leading us in salah. What should we do? He says, as long as they're doing good, you follow them in it. They're doing salah, khalas, follow them in salah. You're not following them in anything else. Imagine saying this about people who are going to kill you, and now look at the young folks and these e-thugs, electronic thugs, they get on these blogs, they talk for hours, they love fights, so forth, so-and-so is mubtadi', and these guys. One of them was telling me that he could go into one of these websites and see how long the blog response was open. The people make their comments. He said one was open for more than 3 hours. The guy's writing a refutation. I guarantee this guy, we give him Bukhari, sit 3 hours and read. 20 minutes. خلاص يا أخي, let's find somebody to pick
20
on.
minutes, bro.
Not even 20 minutes. The tarbiyah aspect is missing, and the shabab, they don't respect people. I remember one time we were sitting, and this was Eid, and Sheikh Abdul Fawzan was sitting, and he was telling us stories, phenomenal stories about his experiences and his meeting with mashayikh, and then he would start to ask questions in fiqh and so on, and he would answer. There was a young brother sitting there, and every time the sheikh would answer, he'd tell him, that's not a bad response, ya akh, ya akh, you brother, what you're saying is okay, it's not too bad, things like that. And then as we were looking at him, where is this guy from, man? And then I think a few months later, I walk into a masjid, this guy's up on the minbar giving a khutbah. Oh, so maybe you give a khutbah, you grab a mic, you believe you're somebody now. That's the issue now? That you speak to a scholar like this, you call him brother, I've seen people call the mashayikh bro. Bro even, MashaAllah. They say, hey bro, aren't you sweet? Bro?
Yo sheikh.
Yo sheikh, huh? Allah. So something respect. And I think we said this during the khutbah, if you have knowledge without any good akhlaq, nobody wants to get that knowledge from you. Nobody wants to deal with you. You know very well the young guy who knows some knowledge, memorized some hadith and ayat, but nobody likes him in the masjid. You all know somebody like that. Because he has bad akhlaq, tries to bother people. You say, so what's your daleel, huh? Even the way you can ask for a daleel can have adab in it. Wallahi, we know people, you just say, what's your daleel? Like in a way that's accusatory, like they're accusing you of lying or something like that. And gentle. The Prophet ﷺ was gentle. You claim to follow the sunnah, and those people, they claim to follow the sunnah. Their Prophet was a gentle Prophet ﷺ, and he was gentle even with Bedouin Arabs would come and grab him until it leaves a mark on his neck, and he's still gentle. And you are on the haqq and on the sunnah, and you're rude to people. Allah, it doesn't make any sense. But we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to make us all very gentle and lenient with one another. Where is the mercy? Merciful with one another. Even someone makes a mistake, slowly, gently you call them and you correct them and call them to the truth.
If you guys let me,
Actually, I have a question concerning that. You can address that.
Before your question, I have something to say about that. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. If you look into the books that were written for Talib al-Ilm, and this is from the beauty of Islam and the beauty of the scholars of Islam, we have so many books that have been written from the early scholars even to the scholars of today, where they wrote an adab Talib al-Ilm, how to seek knowledge, what is the proper way to seek knowledge. So they always focus on the adab of Talib al-Ilm. And they used to say, some of them, كُنَّ تَعَلَّمَ الْأَدَبْ قَبْلَ الْعِلْمِ, that we would learn how to have good adab, good morals and akhlaq before we would seek knowledge. And also, how you speak to your shaykh, like you mentioned, yo shaykh or bro, and these type of things. You only call him in the proper manner, and you look at him in the proper manner, and you sit in a proper manner. And as Jibreel alayhi salam, when he came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, when he put his knees next to his knees, and they said this is how a student of knowledge and he should approach in a proper manner to his shaykh. And also they said, even if your shaykh says something that you know and you learned before, oh yeah, I've studied that, like I do today, yeah, we took that, like for example, if I were to come and teach a class now here and they say, oh yeah, Shaykh Sa'id taught us that, that's not a proper way to teach to deal with somebody who has more knowledge than you, even if he's a student of knowledge like we are, or if he's from the Mashaykh. Also I want to mention a story that talks about adab. I remember one of my trips to Qasim when we went to visit Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen. I was with Dr. Salih, may Allah have mercy on him. And a guy, I don't know where he's coming from, because people in Qasim, you don't dress like this guy. This guy has a baseball cap on and some jeans. The Shaykh wants to go into his house. And this guy comes, he's driving a minivan, and he's blowing the horn. Beep, 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 beep. And he gets out to the Shaykh. And Dr. Salih was like, oh my God. He said, if we even tried to beep the horn, he said the Shaykh would slap us out of adab, just tell me that, because we couldn't do that. But because he was from the general people, the Shaykh was very kind to him. Something happened to me, a funny story about the Shaykh, and I was wearing exactly what you have in your head today, this red shimaq. We were going to Qasim, we were going to Kuwait. And we pulled into Qasim about 3:30 in the morning. The adhan was 4:30 in the summertime. So we went and we made wudu, and we're in the masjid of the Shaykh until the Shaykh came. And subhanAllah, in the masjid of the Shaykh, they would not pray until he comes. And just like the Sahaba wait for the Prophet ﷺ, it wouldn't be like 20 minutes. Now Shaykh Sa'id, mashallah, he's 15 seconds late. Allah Akbar, They wait. And this is from the Sunnah, by the way. You should wait a little bit for the Imam and not be in a hurry all the time. They would wait, but a long time. I remember one time the sun was about to come out. The Shaykh, I don't know, he might have been out of town, wasn't there, what happened, I don't know. He didn't come that day. And I'm not talking about the day I went there, another time. And they would wait for him. So we waited for the sheikh to come, and the brother, he said, I have some questions for him. He said one of them is to ask him about something that has to do with al-hukm bi ghayri ma anzala Allah, which is the ruling by other than laws, because some people, ruling by other than Allah's law. Because some people change the fatwa of the sheikh to be suitable to their fatwa. And I said, the sheikh won't accept it from me because I'm an American. And he said, what do you care about that? You're from America. لا تنشغل بهذا. And don't waste your time with it. And finally, when I asked the sheikh, he told me the same thing. What do you need from that? And a funny thing was, as I was walking next to the sheikh, has anybody ever seen a sheikh? How his size? And he's very small. I think he was, I'm not saying you're a small guy, but he's smaller than Kamal. To give an example.
Well, us knowledgeable people were like that.
Yeah. He's a little smaller than Kamal. He's a small guy. So, anyways, and he was like in his 70s. So I was walking, I had the same shimaq on, and I couldn't really see next to the sheikh, but I was really, keen on listening to what he was saying. So, and the sheikh wanted to go, we were walking this way, and he wanted to go this way to where was his house, the road that way. So I guess I kind of cut him off a little bit, and I didn't realize. And I weigh over 230 pounds. I'm a big guy, and I found myself over there. The sheikh put a forearm into me, like you think it was a big, fullback pushing out of the way, and I flew, man. He put a forearm into me, and I flew in the back like this, and I was like, man, I didn't know what was happening. All of a sudden, I couldn't say to the sheikh, hey, what's your problem? Why you pushing me like that, So I was really shocked, this old man pushed me all this way, and I'm a big guy, So I didn't say anything. And one of the brothers who was there from Kuwait, he's one of the sheikh's students, he said, the sheikh has a rule. And he said, because you're a student of knowledge. You're asking him questions that are, deep. So he knows you're a student of knowledge. If it was a regular person who would have done it. So he said, for you to cut off your sheikh, it's not from adab. So he said, the sheikh, by pushing you, was teaching you adab. And I was like, alhamdulillah, I learned it. I'll never do it again. I know that for sure. Because I really flew back here, about 5 yards back. Alhamdulillah.
Now, coming back to the Jazakallah Khair of Abdur Rahman, the question or the issue that Brother Kamal addressed, and there was the issue of these people, young people who are quick to criticize the ulama. And I know some of them for fact, and I'm saying this live and they recorded, for fact some of the people who used to be among those people who made tawbah from it, that sometimes they will fabricate things. Sometimes they will say, for example, they will say, Sheikh bin Baz made fatwa against Kamal el-Mekki. Sheikh bin Baz made fatwa against Kamal el-Mekki. And then you go down and you read the fatwa, and it is true, the Sheikh is saying Kamal al-Mekki is mubtadi', is this, is dha, la tusallu khalfu, do not pray behind him, don't listen to
they're going to take this clip
I
now
know they cut
and put it by itself now.
I know. All this, they're going to cut and paste. Yeah. But in reality what they did, they find a fatwa of a Sheikh responding to an actual mubtadi'. So they kept the fatwa of the Sheikh, but they changed the name of that mubtadi' and they put your name or his name or my name there. And I know in the area that you were, there was a lot of them. Do you have any experience? Do you know any of the things that, is it true, everything that they say? Because they always say, the ulama are behind us, the ulama agree this. Always something that they like to fabricate or create more light over it or on it.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yes, obviously I studied at that time what was their headquarters, and now they don't have much any say in Medina anymore. The government has taken the power from them, obviously, and they realized that they actually had the harm they had to the students. And I recall, one time, or actually 2 times, that it came from the Minister of Interior, from Wizard al-Dakhliya and Saudi Arabia, and also from the King's Chamber itself, for these people to stop their nonsense and what they were doing to the students. And they always talk about following the rulers and obeying the rulers, but on this certain situation they refused to do it. Subhanallah, because it was so these people. I'll tell you what. Something that happened to me. A personal story is that a rumor spread about me that I used to talk about the governments. Abdur Raheem يتكلم في الحكام. He talks about the governments. I thought about it. The only governments I know, that could be, I think most of the governments are clear that they're not really about Islam. I live in Sudan, I live in Saudi Arabia, and I have good relationships with in both areas. Even one of my friends is a prince, he's a younger guy, I used to visit him, in Saudi Arabia, and the government in Sudan. I know a lot of people in the government. We might not agree with all the things they have. We disagree with some of the things, but we have a relationship with them, and our Muslim brothers and what have you. So I thought, what could I have said about anybody like this? So they're spreading the rumors, and we had a brother from the UK. He was a beautiful brother, and he followed it. Who told you? He said, Zayd told me. He went to Zayd. Who told you? He said, Ubaid. Until he went back to it, and what it was, we were sitting one time in my house, somebody came to visit me, and I said, Barwiz Musharraf, I said, he's Ilmani. He said his role model is Kamal Turk, and he went to visit him. That's all I said. So they said, I talked about the governments because I said something about Barwiz Musharraf, and they made it something big, like I was making this big takfir on all the governments. So they'll take something and they'll fabricate it and spread it like this. Also, and I remember something they used to do when it comes to fabricating things, is that they would take a certain of the scholars who were imprisoned for a certain amount of time, and I think most of the people, and I know their names, they were put in prison for about 6 years and let out. They used to pass out a fatwa for Sheikh Mbaz, saying that they should be stopped if they did not stop what they were saying and some of the things that they were doing. However, another fatwa which came right after that, where he praised them, they wouldn't show the students this. They would just show them one and not the other. And in general, unfortunately, these people, and I like the terminology that Sheikh Kamal used. I think that's classic, and the e-thugs is the great. And you'll find that these people, they're rejected all throughout the world. In the society, and I heard they have a basement here in this area, and all around the world is how they are. They're not accepted in the Muslim communities because they're not concerned about the Muslim Ummah. All they want to do is talk about Muslims. And the fact that they will talk about somebody who is on the Sunnah more than somebody who is far away from the Sunnah, it shows you in the reality of these people. And so I sat with them, and I know them very well. And unfortunately, I don't blame them. The ones who we have in the West, I don't blame them, because this is what they have been fed. Even some people who are mubtadi', some people, this is what their mashaykh, they teach them. And unfortunately, they come into this blind following of what their mashaykh say, and they believe that these shuyukh, that they fly through the air in red capes, and they leap tall buildings in a single bound. And this is like, and this is, and when you talk about the manhaj of Ahl Sunnah, following the Quran and the Sunnah, this is what is totally against this. We love our mashaykh, and we take from our mashaykh. And then I recall one time, I'll tell you something, with Sheikh Abdur Muhsin al-Abbad. And in this issue, I had a big run-in with these people. And I used to go to him every time. I used to go to Sheikh Abdur Muhsin every time. And I remember one time that one of them started talking about me because I used to sit with my Sheikh Abdul al-Qari. And he said, Adu Allah Abdul al-Qari, is what this guy said. He's the enemy of Allah. I was like, wow, So he said, you have to go to our mashaykh. And I said, what? And then I told him, I put him on the spot. I said, what does he have? He said, he's mubtadi'. I said, what does he have? He was like, I don't really recall, but our mashaykh, no. You have to go to our mashaykh. I said, I'll go to Sheikh Abdur Muhsin al-Abbad. He's the scholar of Medina. I'll go to him and ask. He said, no, he's not specialized in the manhaj. You can't go to him. I said, A'udhu billah, what is this? And then the scholar who was with us, he's from the scholars include the hadith from the mashaykh. He said, you can't stop him from going to Sheikh Abdur Muhsin al-Abbad. He's one of the most knowledgeable in Medina. So I went to the sheikh and I asked him, and he said, Hada talibun jayyid. He said, he's a very good student of knowledge. And he has a lot of good. And he praised him so much. He said he went a little overboard in some of his khutbahs at Quba. That's how the Sheikh Abdur Muhsin felt. And he told me, you can benefit from him a lot. SubhanAllah. I said, look what the scholars are saying, look what the youth are saying. And it's a totally different totally different world. So you'll see that unfortunately, and all they want to focus on is what is talking about Muslims. And I know a lot of these people personally, and their communities, they have reached a level where it's like this type of irja. They see that they have made it. They're in the safe zone, everybody else is off of it. So this falls, that's why you always find these type of Muslims, they're always falling into sin. Now if we look at, for example, in some cities in America, on the East Coast, where the biggest cocaine dealer is what? From this group. And the biggest drug gun trade in the city from this group. I don't know, I want to mention about some of the things that some of the sisters do. I don't want to mention that here on tape when we're live here, but it's sad. Because why? Because they feel they've made it, and that's why it's so easy for them to fall into sin. And even in Medina, some of the things that happen, some of them, may Allah and He protect all of us. And it was some evil things. So and unfortunately, you'll find that they focus on trying to make fitna all the time, between the shabab and talking about the scholars. When you see the major scholars, for example, I remember they told us that all of Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen's students, they're off of it. All of Shaykh Ibn Baz's students are off of it. So what does that make Shaykh Ibn Baz and Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen? I asked them. Now, they told me when I went to Qasim, stay away from the students of Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen. They're dangerous, they're this. Shaykh Khalid al-Muslih, Shaykh Ahmed al-Qadi, Shaykh Abdur Rahman al-Dahsh, Shaykh Sami al-Sughayr, all my mashaykh that I studied under. Stay away from them, they're dangerous, they're this, they're that. They have takfir. A'udhu billah. When Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, before he died, in his will, he said what? When I die, he knew he was dying, khalas, he knew he was close, He said, when I die, Shaykh Abdur Rahman Dahsh is in charge of teaching Nahu in my masjid. Shaykh Sami al-Sughayr, who is married to his daughter, by the way, and he's dangerous, I can't go near him, and his Shaykh married him to his daughter. That's the first tazkiyah for him. And then he told him, he becomes the imam, he becomes the khatib, he becomes the teacher of fiqh, the teacher of usul al-fiqh, al-fara'id. And his other son-in-law, Shaykh Khalid al-Muslih, teaches aqidah, and he's the most dangerous of them, by the way. And he told him he teaches aqidah and tafsir to the students when I die. So you'll see the scholars are saying something, and they're saying something. Sahih, they might agree with him on certain issues. So they'll take this and they'll put that in the bright lights. But the issues they don't agree upon with them, they'll hide it and put it away. And this is very, very dangerous. And may Allah protect us all from this. And obviously, I was studying that, and I went through it, and I realized the time that was wasted, and qeel wa qal, and so and so is this, so and so is that. Alhamdulillah. And after about 4 or 5 years of going through that, Allah guided me, and I left that ideology. And I remember one time, I benefited a great benefit from Shaykh Abdur Razzaq al-Abbad al-Badr when the brothers were differing something. And he said to me, and alhamdulillah I found this later in the book of Ibn al-Qayyim myself, but he mentioned that Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned that any knowledge that does not increase you in iman, it is ilm madkhul. What does it mean, ilm madkhul? Something that has been entered. Something has been entered other than ikhlas. And he said, that's why you find these people who talk about this, they'll stay up late at night, so-and-so's off, so-and-so's on. No, by the way, he's back on today. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know, man. He's back on today. He got his pass, he's back on the manhaj today. You'll find these people, they don't get up pray Salat al-Fajr. So you'll find now that these people, he said, this ilm they're talking about, it's madkhul, it doesn't have ikhlas in it. As Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned, rahimahullah. If it doesn't increase you in iman, it doesn't bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it's ilm madkhul. And may Allah protect us, and may Allah guide all of us, and them and us, to help the ummah, inshallah, and come together as one, inshallah ta'ala.
I mean, subhanallah, it's absolutely true. First-hand experience that the masjid has crossed the street of their location. First-hand, the iqamah is called, the adhan is called, the iqamah is called, the qira'ah. We would not go. And the justification was, I'm doing something greater. I'm purifying the aqidah of the ummah. I'm responding to this. So subhanAllah, a lot of time was wasted. But one thing that we all learned through the years, that idea is like Jahannam. Jahannam, if it could not find anything to burn, then it would burn itself. So when they find no one available around them to burn, they would just turn to each other. And today you are mubtadi' and I'm mubtadi' tomorrow, and so on. And then we start until one of us left in.
That's what's happening right now.
That's exactly what happens. Now, we talked a lot.
Can I cut you off real quick? Just pause it. I want to say something that my mashaykh taught me. When I left that, and I was pumped up, and I took my notebooks, and I wrote everything I heard from them down, and I was going to get on the internet, and I was going to refute them, and expose them. Some of my mashaykh, they taught me, they said the best way to deal with these type of people is to act like they're not even living, like they're not even in this world. He said, wallahi, just like you said, they're like fire, they'll eat each other up. And that's exactly what happened. Exactly what happened. And I took this from my mashaykh, and I don't even, and now, even if they were to write something now, and they put something on us about Abu Hurairah, and I don't even want to read it. Please, if it comes out tomorrow, don't bring it to me. I don't want to read it. I wouldn't waste my time. And I saw one of the mashaykh when I went to him, and I said, so-and-so said this about you in his book. He said, wallahi akhi, I haven't seen the book. And there's a book that's been printed for 6 years, and he's been saying really bad stuff about the guy. He said, wallahi, he said, I haven't seen the book. And you'll find they talk about stuff, and they don't even know. One of our brothers, Abu Muslima, one of them said something very, in a conference, there was all these masajid in America. They said, what do you say about Abu Muslima? And this sheikh just started going in on him, just talking really bad about him. Abu Muslima, he came to that sheikh in Masjid Quba in Medina, and said, please tell me these mistakes I have so you can tell me. And this is a guy, he has a PhD in hadith, and he teaches now in Islamic University, unfortunately. And he was like, I really don't know, but I've heard that our Mashiach say about you. I was like, A'udhu Billah. And how can you say that on this is live, on all these links, and he's saying about this person who has over 1,000 tapes in Aqidah. The person has the biggest masjid in America. And even like you said, if we come after him, if we think we might, we learn more than him in Medina, or this, I'm not saying I did. I haven't done anything like he's done. But look what the brother has done. Even some things we might not agree with that he said. And look what he's done for Islam in the West. And they just want to attack him. You see, if there's any light of Islam, they want to put it out. Subhanallah al-Azim. And that's why they focus on anybody who's a big da'iyah. They want to put him out. Abu Usama, Abu Muslima, Sheikh Jamal al-Din, Sheikh Ali Timi. They just want to focus on these people who have been successful in their da'wah and put out this light. Wallahu mutimmin nuruhu.
It's very unique that subhanallah issue like people banning niqab and people saying issues that like that nobody talks about, but subhanallah we are quick to criticize the da'is who are being striving and fighting for the manhaj of the salaf, and subhanallah we left the living ones, and sometimes we go to the grave of those who died and we want to say, hey, look at what they did and so on. So I want to take this opportunity and give the brothers on the floor to ask any questions. If you have any question to any of these two speakers, inshallah, so just raise your hand and inshallah I'll repeat your question to the sisters that you can hear. Yes, ya akhi, in the back.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Right. No. How? No. The brother is saying, Jazakallah khair, is saying, Alhamdulillah, that for the people who come to the masajid for Salatul Jum'ah, they do sacrifice a lot of times because they take off time from their work and they come and so on. And he said, and then when you find when you come to the masjid, he said the khatib is just repeating everything from the Quran and Sunnah. However, basically he's not dealing with the current issue, as I think I understood, or he's not giving what is needed at that time to the community who came to spend time and sacrifice time to listen. How should we approach such a khatib and how should we correct him? And inshallah, I will give this question to Akhwana Kamal el-Mekki.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Look, and perhaps the Mashayikh have different opinions and they can feel free, but the Imam is not untouchable. And there isn't anyone in the Ummah, not even the Khalif or the Hakim, that you can't approach and give and correct or rectify. As long as it's done properly with good manners. You can go up to him and thank him for his effort and so on and so forth and tell him. And you can even do it in an indirect way and suggest, this is a good topic. What do you think we address this issue or that issue? Because so many people, it affects their life, but they don't know about it and they don't get a chance to hear about it. And when you give the khutbah, you've got 500 people who are sitting and not speaking and not playing games, and they're willing to listen to you. What do you think if we use this topic? You can suggest to them. And you don't have to necessarily go and say, Ya akhi, I've been praying in this masjid for the last year, and you give the most horrible khutbah topics I've ever seen in my life. You can just do it in a nice way. So it's not that they're so untouchable that you can't go to them, as long as you do it with good manners. Now I would like to add two pieces of advice that will make your life easier when listening to any khutbah. No matter how horrible or no matter how many times you heard it. This way you benefit from any khutbah. Because a lot of times people go and they want to hear stories, right? They want the khatib to take them up and then bring them down and make them cry and make them laugh and make them sad and make them happy. And if there are not enough stories, people are like, what kind of a khutbah? They just want entertainment, you know. They want the khatib to be handsome. They want him to have long hair that blows in the wind. They want the khatib to have no accent and to be eloquent in English and in Arabic and to make no grammatical mistakes. And yeah, what do you want exactly? You know, and then when you give them a good khatib like that, then they want a different khatib. Like they come, let me see different khatib. It's like a movie now. We've seen this movie. Can we see another one? I'll tell you something. Two things. One, when the khatib is speaking and he says an ayah and a hadith, focus on that. Let that be your khutbah. Yani مثلا, and you've all been to a place or heard a khutbah that was just horrible. Everything, the accent was horrible, the imam was stuttering, it wasn't working at all. But he was saying ayat and ahadith. So focus on these ayat and ahadith, and then test yourself. Because a lot of people say, we need to hear some new hadith. We heard this old stuff before, you know. The other day I was going to give a lecture and everybody kept warning me, give them new ahadith. So in the beginning I told them, wallahi, I was told to find you new ahadith, but I couldn't find any. Every hadith I found was about 1,430 years old. It's not about the new material. It's about this old material. Do you apply it? And this is a culture now that has developed, which is a nightmare. People just want to see, what else is new? I know this hadith. I know this ayah. I heard this khutbah before. No, it's not about that. It's about, do you apply that or not? So you can do this even if the khatib is horrible. When he says the hadith, now pay attention to a hadith and then say, okay, do I apply this or not? Can I start applying this or not when I go home? He says an ayah, okay, I heard this ayah. Yeah, you heard the ayah before. But do you apply the ayah before? The ayah is going to come on the Day of Judgment and either testify for you or against you. He acted upon me or he didn't act upon me. If we focus on benefiting and applying that knowledge, you will benefit from any khutbah. Now beyond that, if the khutbah is still horrible, you can still approach the imam. And if you feel to add to that, faddal.
Yeah, I think a good way is if you see somebody who is a good friend of the imam. For example, if I were to give the khutbah here and you didn't like my khutbahs, and Kamal is my friend, Hassan, Saeed, it would be, somebody could come to him and tell him, that probably would be an easier way to approach the imam. And then also, like he mentioned, a lot of people, you have to realize, even in the East now, there's not a lot of good khutbahs. Even now, like in some of the two holy mosques, where they have to read, so it's not really, it's like a real khutbah, but even when you go to Eastern countries, Sudan, Egypt, there are good khutbah, obviously, but not all the khutbah are good. So when you're here in the West, the majority of khutbah, and originally they're not khutbah, but for some reason there was nobody else to do it, so he was forced to do it. So you have to realize this and bear with him. And this is a very good point. And I benefited from what he mentioned right now about just focus on the ayat and the hadith, because the students used to come to me, and the majority of the teachers that used to teach us, or maybe half of them, they weren't that good. And he had knowledge, but he just wasn't good at teaching. So I told them, for example, and they said, the teacher's very boring. What do we do? And because I was the older student and they were the younger students, I said, what is the book that is the muqarrar? You have to study. He said, Tafsir ibn Kathir. I said, Alhamdulillah, live with Ibn Kathir, Aish ma Ibn Kathir, read Tafsir ibn Kathir, and go ahead, inshallah, you'll benefit something from what he says. But so this is a good point that he mentioned, and focus on ayat, hadith, and implement them in lives. That's a very good point. I benefited a lot from that. Jazakallah khair.
Any more questions, inshallah? Yes.
Can I permit you to make an observation?
Please.
Like this further state, it also depends on the content. Like for example, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, he was teaching Kitab al-Tawheed, and all his students were asking, Sheikh, today also you are teaching us Kitab al-Tawheed every day, so teaching us Kitab al-Tawheed. So the Sheikh gave us example. He said that I saw this, I heard about this incident where this father is having incest. All the students said, oh wow. Then the other day he said about an incident where man was taking help from a jinn. So the students were not bothering him. Then he was saying, you remember why I teach you Kitab al-Tawheed every day?
Yeah.
so I just want to make the
That story, and if you, I remember the story, that the Sheikh Muhammad Abdur Raheem rahimahullah, when he was teaching the students Tawheed, whether it was from Kitab al-Tawheed or just general classes in Tawheed, they were like everyday Tawheed, they give us something new. So he mentioned that he said, and to teach them a lesson, he said, today, excuse me, I have to go to such and such a place because we heard a story about somebody, وَقَعَ عَلَى أُمِّهِ, that he had incest with his mother. And they were like, أعوذ billah, And then when he came back, he mentioned that, he said, okay, we just found that they had slaughtered for the jinn at their house, at their new house. So like, alhamdulillah, bashir bi khair, it's a good thing. And he said, you see what I'm saying? Because this is actually, him having incest is, and shirk is actually worse than the incest. So he said, this is the importance of tawheed and always studying tawheed. And so it's a good story. I remember that story, yeah.
Sure. Any more questions, inshallah?
But the thing is, we are going to have a question and answer session about different things.
No.
This is now, it's the dardasha.
It's just the dardasha.
It's supposed to be like the personal things. So the questions about the things we took in the conference is going to come either after Maghrib or after Isha, one of the two.
Inshallah. So it's just a personal question. Yeah, تفضل يا أخي.
عبد الرحيم انا عبد الرحيم كل الناس يقول لي عبد الرحمن ويقول لي ابني عبد الرحيم لكن انا ابو عبد الرحمن عبد الرحيم يعني نعم Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And most people who talk about migrating to the east, once they actually do go, they usually can't take it, And I recall one of the brothers and his wife, she was like one of the head on the internet about it's wajib to make hijrah and we have to go and this. When they finally went to Sudan, she had a difficult, she had to go back to America. She couldn't take it there. Even though she was, for years she's been calling to the hijrah and what have you. And the hijrah in general, a lot of scholars see it being wajib, that you have to make hijrah from the land of kufr to the land of Islam. But the reality, especially those of us who grew up here, we have a difficulty, and it's almost impossible. And because the system of life there, it's just so different, and it's so different from what we're used to. It's almost impossible. And alhamdulillah, like you mentioned here, look at us today, alhamdulillah. We're in Canada, in Toronto, and we're here with our Islamic attire and our beards, and we're in the masjid and we're talking about Islam. This is a ni'mah. And you look now here when we come for Abu Hurairah for Salat al-Fajr, and in most Islamic countries, you don't find as many the Musalli, mashallah, tabarakallah, who come for Salat al-Fajr. So the khair, if you want it, it's here. And obviously, the shar, it's more here, the evil is more, and it's more difficult. But inshallah, that will be more of an ajr for those who are able to hold on to the religion in an environment like this. And obviously, you'll have more ajr. So obviously I can't say don't go, and it's not a good idea to go, but because it's a good thing for you and your kids if you go. But what we found the majority of the time is that a lot of people, they put a lot of effort into making hijrah, and at the end it doesn't work for them. So you should at least try to hold on to your Islam here and be with the Muslim community, and inshallah the khair is here, alhamdulillah.
Let me go back to personal questions, and let's go ahead, ya. After that we'll come back inshallah to
Well, at our schools we have MSA, like Muslim Administration, and sometimes we actually get together with the sisters, talk about certain issues. But I know in the Quran it says like lower your gaze and not with that. So it gets like an obstacle. Whether it should be like get together
or not together. We will answer all the fiqh questions later inshallah. But now it's dardasha.
We'll give you the first question
yeah.
later, inshallah.
Go ahead. Can you repeat the question?
The question is how I gained my vast lack of knowledge, and whether it was in the East or in the West, and how I gained my superb da'wah skills.
And I have one for this. Don't forget, I have to add something to his answer, because I know something you guys don't know. Don't let me forget. Huh?
See, this is why I don't like things like this. You know? You never know what's going to...
I got one for you. What is it?
Okay. Well, basically, it's very simple. I started in Sudan, and it's interesting that actually, I actually met Sheikh Abdur Raheem recently in Sudan. What, last year? This year?
About a year. It's about a year now. About a year ago.
Yeah, a year ago. We just met briefly, and then as we were talking, we discovered that we met in '94.
'94, yeah.
And we both forgot that we met in '94. So, in about '94, I started to go to a masjid that the imam was one of the students of Sheikh al-Albani, rahimahullah. His name is Sheikh Hassan Khalid Ashesh, hafidhullah, and he's a Syrian scholar, but he's a blind man. Amazing in his tafsir, in his memory, in his recitation. You might find some of his work online, because he knew all the qira'at, and just phenomenal. So, I would attend a lot of his classes. He had another class near our neighborhood, an Aqidah class, and I would attend that. Then there was one point where I had the class every day of the week, but they weren't all to his level, the mashayikh. But it was a good enough level for me. And then in '96 we moved to Virginia, or the Washington D.C. area, and there, because as the Sheikh Saeed was saying, there was a branch, there was a ma'had there, and all the names that he was mentioning in the beginning, all these mashayikh were teachers there. They've been situated there for years. I didn't attend the ma'had. I was initially going to stop school and then attend the ma'had. And Sheikh Ja'far Idris, Hafidhullah, actually told me not to do it. And I was angered in the beginning. I was like, why not stop studying about dunya to study, the deen? And later on I discovered that there was more barakah in his opinion, because he was right. I would have regretted severely, and the ma'had would have shut down before I could have even gotten my degree. So I would find myself with nothing in my hand. But we were able to benefit with some of the mashayikh, like I was mentioning. Some of them, we had classes with them in their home privately. Towards the end, when the ma'had was about to close, I started to attend some classes, just sit and take notes, not necessarily registered at the ma'had. But like I said, the most benefit we got was from Sheikh Ja'far Idris, Sheikh Ali Tamimi. We had an Islamic, we had a center. It was called Darul Arqam, and we. Exactly. May Allah have mercy on it, because it shut down after 9/11 from all the pressures. So there we took a lot of classes in fiqh and in other issues, and it was very beneficial. As far as the da'wah is concerned, I was basically put in a position. There was this man who was the chaplain or imam of George Mason University, and then he left and he put me in his place. And there were big shoes to fill, and I never could fill his shoes. But what happened was that the da'wah was a little weak there. In the 2-3 year history of the school, they had, or of the MSA, they had 2 or 3 shahadas. So 2-3 shahadas in 2 or 3 years, so about a shahada a year. So when I became the chaplain there, we wanted to revamp the whole da'wah table and everything. So for the first time ever, I put together a da'wah workshop, and I gave it a catchy title, which became very popular. I called it "How to Get a Shahada in 10 Minutes." And it was supposed to be a catchy title. Every now and then I get these angry Muslims, "How dare you assume you can do it in 10 minutes? That's not the point. But we did it in the middle of the semester, and we did it like over 2 days. It's about a 6-hour course. And from the middle till the end of the semester, about 15 or 17 people became Muslim. And people started becoming Muslim left and right, professors and instructors at the school and students and everything. So one person was amazed by what's happening. They called their cousin in Ohio and said, we had this workshop and it made a big difference to the da'wah table. So then Ohio invited me over, and then this other MSA invited me, and then Mohawk University in Canada invited me, and then the UK, and then it started to, it moved on from there. But how I learned the techniques, we used to know some African American brothers that were very effective du'at, extremely effective. Like I always mention, they could get 60 shahadas in a day, 60 in one day. So we tried to learn from them how they do it. We gave them venues. I had a radio show every day, and I would give them the last 15 minutes of the show to teach us how to do da'wah. For a full year, they never got into it. They just kept talking about the intention of the da'i. Fine, but I want to know, when I get in the street and someone says, hey, are you Muslim? Tell me about Islam. What do I do so I can take the Shahada within a few minutes? So a whole year they couldn't tell us how to do it. Another one we made, we got a venue, we advertised it, he's going to teach us how to give da'wah. He came and spoke about the hellfire. So I said, okay, let's learn this the other way. I started hanging out with them in the streets, and I learned the techniques that they were using. But what I did, the only thing that I did was I just put it in like a systematic way and put the evidences for each technique from the Quran or from the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, or from the sciences of psychology and sales, negotiation. Everything has da'wah in it. And we put it together in a package and presented it the first time. It got results. So we learned that you could actually teach people with no da'wah experience how to give da'wah and become effective du'at. And from there on, I started giving it worldwide, and then someone put it online. Then I started getting emails from around the world. Someone in Riyadh started giving da'wah to the immigrant, to the non-Muslims there, and this was like 4 years ago. They had like 60 people come into Islam. There's a group in Toronto. They initially heard it online as well, and they brought like probably around 200 now into Islam, but they retained a good percentage of them as well. So that's how the whole thing started. Initially in Sudan, when I started reading the books of Shaykh Ahmad Didat, rahimahullah, and learning how to debate biblically and things like that. And when I came to the US, I was hoping that I'm going to have intellectual discussions with people, and people will be very educated. And I found people were for the amount of knowledge at their fingertips, very ignorant, especially about religion. So I still wanted to debate biblically, which was the old style, we just debate Ahmad Didat style. And I found out that I had to teach them first about the Bible, so I could come and debate them using the Bible. So we discovered that there are better methods than doing that. And I always tell people that what Shaykh Ahmad Didat rahimahullah did with Jimmy Swaggart, that's a debate which is an acceptable form, and it has its place and its time. The problem is the debate became so popular, people thought that was the norm, that's how you deal with things. And that's why wherever you go worldwide, you find people rough in their da'wah, trying to put people in a tough spot and embarrass them. But the truth is, da'wah is an invitation. And I always say, you've probably heard me say this before, if da'wah is an invitation, when is the last time someone invited you like this, grabbed you by the neck and said, listen, there's biryani at my house, 8 o'clock, you better show up? Has anyone ever invited you like that? So if it's an invitation to Islam, it can't be a fight. It has to be something nice, and it has to be something gentle. So that's in a nutshell, the story.
I just want to add to something here. When we met in Sudan recently, and we were talking, obviously we realized we both kind of learned the basics of the da'wah from the same sheikh, the same Jum'ah khutbah, from Sheikh Hussein Ushish, hafidhullah. And we used to pray there every Friday. And people would come from far distance to pray with the sheikh. He was so good in his khutbah, and his Arabic was just so beautiful. And just, mashallah, tabarakallah. And it was a citation, and mashallah, just amazing. So he was telling me that, he lived in Zaire, he lived in Pakistan, his father was ambassador to Sudan. So I was like, yeah. I said, I remember in 94, there was this little scrawny kid, really short, really skinny. He used to always come with a tape recorder and put it on the sheikh's minbar, small kid. And his father was an ambassador. He was like, that was me. And I was like, and then he told me another story. I remember this white guy used to hang with this other brother named Mukhtar, really tall and really skinny, and I'm really tall and really fat now, So I was like, that was me, So we had known each other that whole time. We hung out, and we didn't realize it was because he had changed how he looked. Mashallah, he grew and got a little bigger, mashallah. And I became you grew a lot, man. And also, I grew a lot too. Maybe I was taller, but I got a lot wider during that time. So I looked a lot different. So it was actually funny. We've been hanging out for I think it was the second time we came to Sudan. So it was like a few months we hung out together. We didn't realize that we had known each other the whole time, mashallah.
Now I think this was one of the most enjoyable lectures or talk that you ever heard. It was very informative and very beautiful. Inshallah, all the answers were well put out. May Allah reward them both, and may Allah reward you for listening. Inshallah, we will resume with the rest of the lectures. Jazakumullah khair. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah.